Hey everyone, my name is Saketh. I'm an engineer here at Decodable, and I'm here to show you our Imply-Polaris sync connector. So just as a bit of background about Polaris before we jump into a demo, Polaris is a real-time database that's built from Apache Druid, and it's offered by Imply as a fully managed database as a service. Our goal in building this connector is to make it as easy as possible for you to send your cleaned, filtered, aggregated, and transformed data through Decodable to Polaris, taking advantage of the sort of rich suite of features that Decodable offers and allowing data to end up in your Polaris tables in a correct and fast way. So with that goal in mind, we've boiled down the steps that you need to take to actually configure your sync to these four right here. And my goal in this demo is to basically walk you through them through this following example, which we've written up. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to be streaming clickstream requests or HTTP requests that I'm going to parse using Decodable, using a Decodable pipeline, and then send to Polaris via our Imply-Polaris sync connector. So let's get started. The first step that we want to take in these four steps that we're going to need to do to configure our sync is to create our table in Polaris. So as I said earlier, my goal is to stream HTTP requests. And what that's going to look like is a couple of fields that corresponded to the different components in our HTTP request strings, namely our method, path, response code, bytes received, etc. So we can freely assume that we've already done this, and we can move on to step two. Step two is going to be to create a corresponding decodable stream to ingest to the Polaris table. And I've already done so here. So you can see that data is sort of incoming. It's being streamed in real time. This data is sort of a parsed version of our click streams, which contain all the fields that we expect to end up in our Polaris table, namely our timestamp, method, original path, and etc. If we follow the sort of lineage of this of the stream, we can see it's coming from this pipeline, which with this SQL is basically parsing out the fields using some SQL functions that Decodable offers, and we're basically able to parse out the fields that we want, that we actually care about, and output them to this stream. So cool. Our goal is to basically put this data into our Imply-Polaris table, HTTP requests in this case. All right, so at this point, we've created our table, we've created our corresponding decodable stream, and now we need to set up some infrastructure on Polaris's end to actually enable Decodable to authenticate properly to Polaris. And so what we need to do is we need to create a push streaming connection and a streaming job. And what I'll be doing is I'll be using Polaris's REST API to create those resources, and I'm going to be using Postman to do so. And I've already basically done so here, and so I've already created this resource, which is essentially emulating this curl command that you see in our documentation right here. And then creating the actual job where I'm going to be establishing the mappings between our actual fields in our stream and the columns in the table that we want to stream to. So we're specifying our input schema, which is basically going to match the schema of our stream in Decodable right here. And we're basically defining these mappings here and essentially creating that resource so that Polaris knows what to expect when we are streaming to it. So I've already created both of those things, and I've used Postman to create both of these objects in Polaris so that we're able to authenticate properly. Cool. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do now is step 4, which is to actually create the connection itself. I'll show you what I've already created, and it's called Polaris Demo in this case, where I filled in the connection name, the organization name, our client ID, and the client secret, which are basically the parameters that you'll need to specify that come straight from your Polaris deployment. This is what will allow us to authenticate properly to Polaris. And notice that this connection name is what we created in step 3. right here. So with that in mind, what we can do is go ahead and start this connection, and we'll see that this starting state will transition to running when the sync is actually ready to start sending data over to Polaris. And we should see some metrics appear here too. All right, and we can see that the state has transitioned to running. We can see some metrics that are starting to be populated here. And if we were to navigate back to our table, we start seeing our actual click streams being populated in our Polaris table, just as we expect. So cool. We've basically done all the steps that we need to set up our Imply-Polaris sync connector and actually start sending data, namely through a decodable stream, all the way to your downstream Polaris tables. So in this video, hopefully you've gotten a sense of how to use Decodable to stream your clean data to your Polaris tables. And as always, we are open to feedback on this connector and on the product in general. So if there's anything that you'd like to see that we could do better, please feel free to let us know.